Yes, here we go. It's the T.N.F. Tonight we hand over the keys to use, and there is a lot to get through this fine Thursday. Different lineup this Thursday. Mark had prior engagements at 6 o'clock, and with what has been a whirlwind 24 hours in the land of Celtic, I didn't think half an hour was gonna quite cut it. So I pulled in the some of the squads getting utilised on a Thursday for a wee change. We run out for Johnny on a Thursday, and Phil just keeps racking up the games like Callum McGregor on the bus. He is Mr. Consistent, 60-game a season man. Yes. We'll do all that good stuff very quickly. Remember, do give us a wee like, give us a share, buy some hair and all that, carry on. Also, remember, do hit the subscribe button. Please hit the subscribe button if you've not already. We're nearly at 5,000. And if you have hit the subscribe button already, by all means, make sure you hit the bell, because the bell means you never miss a bus. Of course, as well, remember, head over to piesports.com, tasty pastry treat, 12.5% off at the checkout when you use the code BUS1888. And, of course, there is the option, if you so wish, $1.99 a month. It's never went up. It's not going to go up unless YouTube put it up. But it's $1.99 a month. It gets you absolutely nothing extra. It just helps keep the wheels on the road of the bus, and you can become a Boys to Bus member. And there's a few extra emojis you can use. We've got loads of members in there. The likes of Alan Mokwa. Alex is back. How are you, pal? Hope you're good. Ali's in there as well. Gary Brown, Jim Dolan. They all are members. It's up to you. You get a wee logo beside your name as well, which I'm sure it is. Right, okay. Over to you, Phil, because I want your thoughts. You have been, as we've discussed on many of the various shows we've done when we've had a wee retrospective look at all things Celtic. Our Celtic timeline's very similar, Phil.
Yes.
So we know what it feels like to not have any European sort of adventures until it all just came in abundance under Martin O'Neill. It's 21 years since we won a knockout tie. It's actually 12 seasons now since we've even been in the knockout stage of the Champions League. That is, of course, Lenny got us there in the UEFA Cup when he topped the group. We've picked up 12 points in the Champions League this year. 12 Champions League points. Now, I'm looking at doing the math on that. I'm not sure what you get for a draw in the Champions League. I guess about a million euro, and you get 3 million for a win, something like that. So, the prize money Celtic's generated just in terms of the point accumulation, let alone then the bonus money you get for qualifying for the next round. The European adventure has certainly paid off. This is the Points Not Plaudits campaign, because I could have been fooled to thinking, folk aren't all that happy with Brendan right now.
Yeah, it's the timing, obviously, of other things last week, obviously, other former managers of ours, and I've seen a few tweets as well last week about sort of nonsense stuff suggesting, get him back. No. This is what we wanted. We'd said it for 2 years under Ange. As good as it was under Postecoglou in terms of like what he did for the 2 years, the Champions League, you've said it all the time, Russell, winning Scottish Cups, winning League Cups and whatnot, we'll see how many more of them in our lifetime. It's embarrassing to sit here and say it's been 21 years since we've had a victory in Europe after the Christmas period. So no knockout victory since 2004. So it's this is a great chance. We've shown now this season that we've turned the corner in Europe. We talked about again Celtic Park, how it's our biggest weapon on European nights. We need to make it a fortress again. That's us now 6 games without a loss in the Champions League, going back to last season. Because we drew Atletico, we beat Feyenoord, and we've had 4 games this season in the competition, and we've not lost them. 3 wins and a draw. So Celtic Park now is hopefully starting to go back to what it was, because I could tell you firsthand, to be in the stadium last night, the atmosphere was unreal. If you thought it did sound loud on the telly when the goal went in, then it was eardrum busting last night. And that's what we want it to be. Going into that game last night, there was obviously a lot of talk about the fans have got to stick with the players. Obviously, Brendan put out there a couple of weeks ago after the St Mirren game. He might have ruffled a few feathers about the atmosphere and whatnot, but Jesus Christ, the fans certainly turned up last night. It's now, if Celtic Park's getting back to what it is, then this European venture could continue a little bit further. There's no reason to think why not. Now, depending on how we finish, I don't know if we get a home game first or an away game first in the next phase. I don't know how it will work out, seeded and whatnot, but we've got to make the home game count massively. Ideally, I'd prefer to play the away game first in the knockout phase and have them back at Celtic Park for the second one, but I guess they deal on the group chat, so I guess beggars can't be choosers at this point. But yeah, we're going in the right track now, and it is a refreshing change because I want to make amends for this 21 years without a victory in knockout stages, man. Now is the time.
Now is the time, indeed. I actually disagree with you on the home and away thing. I think we need to play at home first to give ourselves any sort of chance. I think if we go away, it could be out of our hands by the time we get at home. But if you've got something to protect over there, then you know what you're doing over there. Or well, at least if you know your agenda over there, you're not going in with a blank canvas. I think Celtic away in Europe still gives me the fear, Phil. So I think going at home, particularly with our home form in the tournament this year, unbeaten at home, I would like us to play at home first. But anyway, that's a different conversation. You're absolutely right when you talk about the record, and it's been something that we've been channeling on the channel. Johnny, has been Celtic need to channel their European focus more. That has been what I think they've been turning a blind eye to for so long under the Lawwell regime. I think it's been something that has been a novelty. I think Celtic have been so prudent in so many other aspects of how they work off the park. But because they never speculated on making the Champions League money, they actually came out and said, we budget for the Europa League. I mean, what does that tell you about a club's mindset in a nutshell? It says it all. You've had that many league title wins, and yet you still couldn't bring yourself. I think that statement was made in 2018, 2019? Something like that. 1920, was it? That they only budget for the Europa League?
I can't remember who the chairman was at the time, but yeah, he basically did say we can't compete in Europe, didn't he?
Well, he said Celtic budget to qualify for the Europa League. And I'm like, well, wait, now I've just looked at 2 decades of dominance. That sort of budgeting theory that you've got there has to move with how the club's sort of doing. And there was opportunities to do better in the Champions League. And that would have meant we didn't need to be so prudent in so many other areas, like our signing policy, for example, that actually regressed, didn't progress like every other country's clubs have in the last 20 years. Ours went back the way, which is bizarre. That aside, we are where we are now. And I think it's took bringing Brendan back. We knew that Ange was going to be a big loss. And my thoughts on it, Johnny, are Celtic were pissed off that Postecoglou had done the dirty on them, essentially. And they'd got wind of it. And they knew they had to play a trump card to overcome what was a manager that was held in a legendary status by so many fans already. Misplaced in my opinion, but that's a different story. And I think they were like, right, what's blockbuster and realistic that we can get? And the only one that was of an elite level that was realistic Celtic could bring in was Brendan. How do you then convince Brendan? He's gonna say, well, look what I went through when I left. Like, I'm not coming back. That's crazy. And to be honest, the challenge wasn't up to much the last time, and that was kind of why I looked at leaving in the first place. And you guys were penny pinching. So they've had to go, no, we're aligning with you now, and we're looking at Europe. And that's been such a big change, and you've seen it. The first summer, I think, with Postecoglou, maybe, I'm not saying they were all his signings, but I think signings discussed maybe with Ange throughout the season. They've been drawn up in the shortlist, a lot of them, and they went over the manager's head. I think we've seen since January last year when it was just Nicholas Kunanida, and then this summer when it was, the big money spent on Engels, and then, of course, the permanent acquisition of Vida, the 1 million for a veteran 26-year-old in the SPL. That's not Celtic business. I'm joking with the veteran bit, but it's not Celtic business. I think there's been a shift, Johnny, in Celtic's attitude to Europe. I think it's actually, it's miles too late. But in actual terms of the opportunity we had with the automatic group stage, we're a season too late because we've got to play a playoff round this summer now anyway, which could mean that we actually don't qualify for the tournament even when we do win the league, which would be frustrating when it feels like we're now more focused on Europe. But isn't it interesting that with the improvement in the signing policy, with that, sort of opening of the purse strings, if you like, and it's not because of Engels that we've qualified for the group, but I just think the mentality shift that Celtic have shown, people get on board with that. The players feel it as well. And if they think the manager's gearing for Europe and he believes that you can contribute in Europe, and they see signings coming in that are of that sort of level, not all projects, the fans believe it too. And I think Phil's right to talk about the atmosphere last night because it was deafening even on the telly. It was absolutely madness. And I think that was the sound of belief. We're on the cusp of finally doing something in the Champions League again. The turnaround is no coincidence, if my theory is right, that Celtic's attention's all shifted all in on Champions League since they reappointed Brendan.
Yeah, I think you're right. And just rewind you back a little bit when you talked about your favourite saying under Ange, you know, the points not, you know, we want points not plaudits. And you're right, when Ange left after he'd had a successful 2 years and had gained that legendary status, we were all quite gutted, I suppose. But we were gutted. We just lost a successful manager who seemed to have the Midas touch in certain areas. And like you said, the only realistic option we had to keep the support on board, or most of the support at the time on board, was Brendan. He was the one I wanted first, second, and third choice. There was only one person as far as I was concerned. I was actually surprised that I got what I wanted. And you're right, they must have said to Brendan, look, this is the way it's going to be now. We have shifted from the way we were when you were here first time round. But then after the first transfer window, you start to think, well, have they actually? Because, you know, we didn't get what the blockbuster season we were expecting. And our man Terry kept saying it's for last summer, it's this summer or never. And it looked like it was going to be never because we didn't really push the boat out. And Europe wasn't much of a success last year in the old format. And I think Brendan's actually said to them, look, I told you the players you gave me last summer weren't the people we're looking for. We need better for this time. And in all fairness, we've gone and done it. And we're now reaping the benefits of that. So we've got to hope that it's Brendan now who's going to be fully focused on the incomings and the outgoings, the ones that we want rid of, or the ones who aren't going to make it. I mean, like say maybe Yang and whatnot. Brendan's got to be the man with his hand on the rudder when it comes to the incoming of players and the outgoings. I was just thinking when you were talking about the 21 years since we last won a knockout game after Christmas, and 13 years since, and you just suddenly, now maybe it's just I've got to that age where you suddenly think, shit, was that really that long ago? You know, because it just kind of, it just all sort of rolls along until somebody says to you, oh yeah, but that was 2012, and then you suddenly stop and do the maths and you think, Jesus Christ, yeah, that was, you know, David.
Yeah, the 2012 was a qualifying, and that was 12, 13 years ago, the 12-13 season, and the knockout win was against Barcelona, and then we got put out by Villarreal in 2004. Yeah,
and when it almost stops you in your tracks when you think about it. We should not be doing that. Not that, as you've said, the free run or the free reign we've had of qualifying for Champions League, because of our league, winning the league, and the opportunity we've had, and we just never ever pressed the button to go for it, and hopefully we're going to press that button a bit more regular.
Yeah,
and soon actually. In the next couple of days, we're going to push that button for the. I know anybody who comes in now is not available for Aston Villa, obviously, but it's not a dead rubber. But we've already qualified. But what we do now will impact on the knockout phase, which is going to be. I would imagine it's going to be a tough. Whoever we get, it's going to be tough, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is.
I mean, like so, but then again, you know, when we I think I put in our group chat last night, if you'd said to me at the start of this campaign that we'll finish above Manchester City, who are the champions, aren't they?
That's a great point, mate.
That we'll finish above them, you'd have laughed at me. You'd have sent for the men with the white coats and the tied up the back, like, you know, you just thought, oh, wait and chase yourself. In fact, if we'd said it at the start of the season on the bus, we'd have been getting clipped all over the place. That idiot there reckons that Celtic are going to finish higher than Man City. And regardless of what happens next week now, lads, we are, aren't we? So
4 points a difference between them.
So,
yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting as well, Phil, when we talk about the gap between the last knockout win to this one. If you remember when we were growing up, just to take you back down memory lane, and John Hartson shrugs that dirty Celtic Vigo defender who'd been hacking us all night, pushes him aside, rifles it into the bottom corner. If I remember, that was the first time Celtic had European football after, it wasn't quite a knockout win, but European football after Christmas in 22 years.
Yes, it was.
And we went all the way to the final. Now, that's not what's going to happen in the Champions League. That's not what I'm saying. However, how interesting is it that that'll be twice in your, I don't want to give your age away, Johnny, but twice in your life, you've seen spells of Celtic with such European droughts. You've witnessed greatness, the pinnacle, and also then seen 22 years of not getting past Christmas in Europe. Then you've seen greatness, or on the brink of greatness, had we won the UEFA Cup, and brilliant Champions League campaigns, the last 16s under Straka and Lennon and stuff. And now you've witnessed another 21-year window where we've not won a knockout match. I know they're not the exact same two records, but it's very interesting that there's been such longevity in both those of such damaging stats, Phil. Do you know what I mean? And they can't afford to just sleepwalk that long. That's sleepwalking when a club like Celtic, I mean, that first spell, when you actually think about it, when that was 2002, so 22 years ago, what, the 1980 season or something like that? So that's like only 13 years after being the champions of Europe, we then managed to embark on a 22-year spell we couldn't get in Europe after Christmas. Then you've got a UEFA Cup final. You've then built on that with Champions League last 16s, 9 points under O'Neill in the group stage. You've had last 16 under Lenny, beating Barcelona, things like this. But you're actually in the midst of a 21-year cycle. You've not been able to win one knockout tie. And you've actually been in very many. And I don't think Celtic can just afford to just sleep for nearly quarters of a century at times. I don't think that's right. But this time it has to be, are you getting it now? The reason you've convinced fans it's okay to not break your transfer record at a club our size for 18 seasons is because you weren't focusing on our best chance of additional revenue to remotely keep a hold of the coattails of the Big Five. And that was going to be Champions League, combined with all the other brilliant commercial deals you do, which actually would be enhanced if you were always in the Champions League, may I add. So, from that point of view, Phil, is this going to be a new era? Or is this, like I was touching on, based on a promise made to a manager for his 3-year return? And I've got the feeling it is a 3-year return with Brendan. I think he'll leave this time after 3 years saying, look, see, I only ever said I was here for 3 years. No one could call me a liar this time. My worry would be when you take a Brendan out of this equation, that potential of a 20-year sleepwalk could happen again. Sorry, I went on a bit.
That's all right, no worries. Again, it goes back to what the club obviously want to act like a big club. Well, do it. You want to be a big club. You want to be at the big competitions. It's as simple, really. It's not just a case of, we're just going to do it to appease Brendan. This needs to continue. We need to keep on building on this because domestic bliss, domestic success, it'll be easy to come by. I mean, it has been easy to come by in the last decade and more. We've been dominating, but we want to keep that going. See if we've got a squad that can compete in Europe on a regular basis and at least keep getting through to the knockout stages and keep this cycle going, then you don't need, domestically we'll be fine. If we've got a squad that can take points off of RB Leipzig's and all these Bundesliga teams and Serie A teams and whatever, then you don't need to worry about losing leagues to Rangers and dropping points to the Motherwells and St Mirren's of the world. It's like, it's this really simple process, but as we saw, in the lull period of the mid-2010s, in particular under Ronnie, the club definitely took a few steps back, and it showed in the crowd. We had to put banners over parts of the stadium. Remember that, Johnny? The Upper East Stand, and it's like, if you've, I'm going to use a quote from a film here. If you build it, they will come. It's that simple. If you build a team, it's really simple. So we can keep this. You keep this cycle going. It's not a case of we'll just switch it off once Brendan goes away. When Brendan does leave, we go and get another top manager that can keep this going, and we keep building. It would be ridiculous to take steps back because it's so crucial that we do not let the other side across the city get a sniff of any sort of glory and get those riches of the Champions League. But to keep it going, we keep on mounting up this money. We have to obviously keep acting like a big club and spending it. And if rumours are to be believed this month, that might happen in the next few days. As Johnny said, we'll wait and see in the next few days. Sounds like it might be.
Well, indeed. I think one of the things as well, when I look at when eyes are on the Champions League, what it actually does is as well, when you get something like 12 points and you've qualified with a game to spare, do you not think there's other guys like Arnie Engels, ilk, that are playing in a top 5 league, maybe one of the less fashionable clubs, that Celtic becomes more appealing to? We start becoming a sexier team to join because of that. Do you know what I mean? It's to kit manufacturers like the Adidas deals and stuff. Do you not think they'd be more if you're regularly winning games in the Champions League and making the latter step? Of course it does. It's the be all end all when you're in a I'm not calling it the Farmers League, but that's how it's derided from every other eyes that are on it, right? Well, aren't really on it, but just have any second thought they've got. It is a Farmers League. So if that's all you've got domestically, that's not selling. That's not selling to better coaches and managers unless they've got the affinity like Brendan had. It's not going to sell to better players, and it's not going to get you the best commercial possible deals either. So we had to get out of that domestic bliss bubble. And I think the trebles were disguising a hell of a lot of failings from Celtic. And it's so refreshing to be in the place that we are now and seeing the fruits of your European endeavours, what impact they have, because we're actually miles clear in the league. We've got the first trophy in the bank already as well. And that all coincides. And I think our best form this season, when we were a joy to watch, was when the Champions League was on alongside the domestic stuff. And by the way, to be fair, how instantly Celtic got back in. What is that noise? I thought it was in my flat.
Mate, it's the government doing one of those alerts. Yeah, aye. Remember they tested it last year to test everybody's phones. It's got there's about the red warning tomorrow. So yeah, don't venture out, folks. Everybody should have got that though on their phone. That is genuinely weird. I never thought that would actually happen, but yeah, just about
it just went off in my flat as well. I think.
Oh yeah, because you've got the red weather warning up in your area, haven't you?
Yeah, I do indeed.
I don't think I've got that app. I've never heard of it. I think it was the cleaner's phone went.
Patrick McGoldrick said just jumped through his skin. Michelle said the sellers, the government are utilising that feature. Remember they tested it last year or the year before, but it's not been used yet. But there you go, they've now used it. But yeah.
Well, at least there was no weather warnings to prevent us getting the job done last night. Phil, you were at the game. Just what your thoughts on it as well. Me and Terry, obviously, you're caught up in the moment as well. And sometimes I think our analysis is I like how we sort of cover it, but it's never sort of always, well, it's not bad for the blow-by-blow stuff. Terry kind of keeps me right, but we always seem to be looking at it from loads of different directions. So it's always interesting to get your take. You were at it. You've already spoke about the atmosphere, but talk to me about Celtic's performance, because I felt first half, I was really pleasantly surprised how quickly it felt like we reverted to the team we'd been watching, in August, September, October, November this season. Did you not feel it was almost like, boom, and we're back?
I thought we were absolutely brilliant last night. It wasn't for want of try, and I know outsiders, I know everyone in Europe, they would have seen the score and whatnot and probably thought, Celtic just scraped by the bottom team there. It did not tell the story one bit. It was like the Bratislava game. It felt like that. Like the way we started that night, we absolutely took them to pieces. And again, watching that last night, we were really quick. McGregor was so dominant in the middle of the park. I thought he was fantastic. I know one of the many goals that got chopped off came from McGregor, hassling a defender and obviously winning it, and then setting up Kyogo. But we were fantastic from minute one. First half, just couldn't believe what I was watching, where 3 goals chopped off and a missed penalty. So there is that wee bit of doubt in your head starts to creep in, where you're like, don't tell me. I've read this chapter somewhere before. Second half, there was a wee bit of a lull in the performance, but not for much. But in that wee 10-minute spell, we did have the double save for Casper, but we obviously picked it up again. And it was a phenomenal performance. We deserved a bigger win, but last night was just about getting the win by any means necessary. So as we get the points, goal difference isn't going to be a factor. If we'd drawn the game, then goal difference is going to be massive. And obviously with the previous games, we could come back to haunt us. But last night was an excellent performance. I thought it was at the weekend against Kilmarnock, we dominated play again. There's a bit of a weird narrative going around if we're only winning games narrowly as well. That's not good enough for some fans, it seems, as well. But you've got to look at how the game played out. say on Saturday we should have got a bigger win against Kelly, and last night it goes without saying we should have absolutely destroyed them last night. But ultimately, as we getting the win, and yeah, what a feeling, what a moment. And I said to my mate at the end of the game, where I know there's never a dull moment with Celtic, and it certainly does test the heart. But the way we won it last night was more satisfying. See if we'd got those 3 goals in the first half, or the 4 goals, in fact, penalty, 3 disallowed, we won it comfortably. That would be good. But see, by doing it with that wee bit of drama, just the way Celtic do it sometimes. You'll know this, Johnny. Billy McNeil once said it, there's a fairy tale about Celtic. At times I do feel that, with just the way we do things and how it's just all set up and late goals and just the drama in it. There was just something exhilarating about that last night, the way we pulled it off. But phenomenal performance from start to finish, mate. Honestly, brilliant.
Yeah, I really liked what I seen as well. And Johnny, just as we were talking about last week, was it not? We seen from the 3rd minute onwards a deliberate shift in attitude to, if you get your head up and you see the early ball, do it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
let our front three find it. And it's not hoofing it like we were talking about, and we were really trying to push the narrative of going, it's an effective weapon. We've got real cultured midfielders with amazing technical ability that can loft beautiful sort of pitch and wedge shots right into space. The measured passes, remember, and the pace we've got, it has to be up there with the fastest front 3 in Europe right now.
Oh,
disclaimer, I don't really know any others. But do you not think from the 3rd minute when you seen that, Johnny, you thought, right, okay, here we go, because that's clearly deliberate, and it's going to be something we utilize. I appreciate we didn't score from it, but I think you saw how effective it could be. Did you not?
Oh, it definitely did. I think there was at least 3 times in the first half that we played that type of ball, and of course, what led to the actual goal, although it wasn't put through the air, that was a long ball pass. But that's exactly what it was. It was a pass. It wasn't hit it and hope it goes where he knew where he was putting that ball. It was as the judge would say, it was one of his moments that he picks out now and again. That pass, it was an unbelievable pass. But going back to the actual, as Phil was saying, the performance was brilliant, right, almost from the off, and it was just. I mean, obviously, the goals were all rightly disallowed. I mean, they weren't rightly disallowed. Yeah. With what's happening today, and we're going to talk about it a little later on, I've got a little bit of theory on there, because Kyogo probably had his best European game for us in quite a while. Although he didn't actually score, he had his hat-trick of offside goals. I've got a little bit of theory that I've just thought about over the last couple of hours. I reckon Kyogo was told, we do the job tonight, and we'll let you go to Rennes. But if we need you for Aston Villa next week, then you're staying, because that's the performance you're putting. Like, I'm going to win this game.
I would be raging if Celtic didn't have that in place, because that would be crazy.
So I reckon that's why Kyogo was looking so sharp, and probably too sharp for his own good with the goals that were chalked offside. But I remember the story Jock Stein told Jimmy Johnson: if we beat this lot by enough, you don't have to go to. Who was it now? It was Yugoslavia or something. You don't have to go for the semi-final, the second leg. And we won something like 3 or 4-0 that night. And Jimmy's dead chuffed because I don't have to go and fly in the plane, but Jock liked him. But I do think that there's a possibility that came, because with knowing the Aston Villa result from Tuesday night, we had to get that win last night. Because I would not fancy going to Villa Park needing to get a minimum of a point to get through to qualify. That would be, I think you've said it before, Phil, such a Celtic thing to do. It was
feeling like that at a point last night where you're like, it's going to go down to Villa Park.
I was going to put in a group chat, and I didn't want to jinx it. I just, after about 55, 60 minutes, I just thought, this has got 1-0 to Young Boys, last minute goal written all over it. And I just thought, I'm not putting that in the group, because that will just jinx us, As it turned out, we got a league. There was a league goal, but it was at the right end as far as we're concerned, so that's fine. So that's 2 theories I've got. The fact that we knew Aston Villa result, and if we win, job's done. Doesn't matter what happens at Villa Park. But a draw would have made it a lot different. And if we'd drawn last night, then you lads would tell me before we came on that Kyogo was actually in Rennes at the moment, getting ready to join the relegation battle. So,
well, you've
given
us an interesting
all works out in the end, shall we say?
You've given us an interesting segue there, Johnny. So well done, mate. That was slick. Because obviously the big talking point is. I was writing that all day. I mean, from the high of the qualification secured with a game at spare, very quickly, by the way, that Peter Martin.
That was in my head as well. Before. Yeah.
He's a Celtic fan.
Aye.
Well, he's meant to be.
Peter Maguire.
And he's literally posted last night, Celtic qualified. See, remember, he's a journalist, mate. So, like, words and stuff, like, meant to be, like, have half a handle on. And he says, he doesn't say Celtic nick late goal against Young Boys to win the match by the skin of their teeth or anything like that. Nope. It's Celtic qualify for the playoff stage in Champions League by the skin of their teeth with a game in hand, with 1 defeat from 7, with an unbeaten home record. What's this guy talking about? But anyway, that's by the by. Let's go to Kyogo. So we've got the high of qualifying, and then I think it's fair to say the shell shock, Phil, of literally almost, the referee's just put his whistle back in his pocket and this story just appears that it's not just a rumour, it's on, like Donkey Kong Kyogo to Rennes. I had a feeling, and I'd said before that Celtic, and I never said it was necessarily my opinion, but if a bid came in, they would be open to it. Now, the reason we spoke about that before wasn't any ITK or any of that bullshit. It was because, of course, the bizarre Atlanta United thing, where he was kind of listed on some graphic. And then, of course, that opened up. Well, now that stories came out, and we didn't know at the time whether it was real, surely it then begs the question, how would you feel if offer was made in a certain ballpark for Kyogo? Now that we've had a wee sort of glimpse of what that reality might look like, or maybe even thought it for a wee small period of time. And I said I think Celtic would be open, and I think Brendan Rodgers would be open to doing business on Kyogo. I'll read this out. It's inside the SPFL on Twitter. Phil posted this. I retweeted it. You've probably seen it, but for the viewer's point of view, I'll read it out. So Kyogo's played an almost identical number of minutes for Celtic under Rodgers as he did for Ange Postecoglou. 5,373 minutes under Ange, and it was 5,369 minutes under Rodgers. 4 minutes out, right? That is incredible.
Yeah.
So you couldn't get a better sort of comparison to look at. He scored 54 goals in that time under Ange. He scored 31 under Rodgers. Yeah. He got 11 assists under Ange. He got 12 under Rodgers. So the assists are kind of the exact same. Yeah. The goals, minutes per goal, 99.5 under Ange. It's nearly double, you could say. 173 minutes between goals for Celtic under Rodgers. Do you know what I think with Kyogo? I think we got a live one at 26.
Yeah. Who
came in with a bit of a point to prove, because he'd been in Japan up to that point, and you had guys like Iniesta raving about him, thinking, how's this guy not had a chance? I think we just saw the best of him. There is the argument about the system, and I think it does factor into it. That under Rodgers, it's just not worked for, let's be honest, for neither of the strikers this year. It's suited the wingers, this style. But then my eyes don't lie either. And Kyogo's touch has been heavier. His finishing hasn't been as good when he's had opportunities. I'm not saying he's at the end of as many chances. Where's that XG stat when you need it, Phil? But I'm not saying he's been at the end of as many opportunities as what he was under Postecoglou. But the ones he had, I think he felt more deadly under Ange than what he does under Rodgers. And that might be a player who peaked at 28 years old. And the last 18 months have been not a big drop-off, by the way. No way, shape, or form. Just the trajectory's going that way. Celtic are going to want to cash in. Or they'll have a chat with the manager. Are we going to keep this guy as a mainstay of this football? Do you see him as a mainstay in or of Celtic's first team, in case Brendan's not there? Do you see him being the boy for Celtic for the next 2, 3, full years, and we just forget about, recouping transfer fees and wages and all that on him, and forget the business aspect, and we just have a guy for 8-9 years who contributes loads to the cause. And my guess is that Rodgers has probably thought his impact is on the wane, but he can only go by what his experience is with him, and he'll think, if you can double your money on what you paid for him at this stage, it might be time to, rather than stick, but to twist. What I will say about it, and I know people panic, it should be the end of the season. See if he wants to go, which obviously he does, because he's in Rennes the next day. He wants to go. I think there's pressure from Japan as well, because he wants to be in a top 5 league, etc. But Phil, it's aggressive. I don't mind seeing aggressive Celtic in the. I know folk will go, to sell a player. Obviously, someone's got to come in now between now and January.
Yeah.
They 100% will do that. There is no danger that gets commissioned, right? If there's not going to be a replacement, insurances there will be. But to flip it mid-season shows me it's a spiky move. I think it's a move that's got a bit of cojones about it. There is sentiment that will get in the road for a lot of fans, but push that to one side. A football manager can't worry about that. And if he thinks he can upgrade, Celtic turn over a profit, they're licking the lips, and he thinks he can get a younger version on the up with the same dough. I get it. And as I say, it reeks of ambition, not settling for what you've got. If you don't think what you've got is good enough, improve it. And I know people don't like to hear that. It's not necessarily my view. But if it's the view of the football guys in the operation, let's see what happens. Roll the dice.
Yeah, it's just natural. Footballers, they come to a point in their career. Let's be honest. You just read out the stats there. He's not the same Kyogo we were getting under Ange 2 years ago. And so, Brendan's obviously working with him in training every day. I love Kyogo. I think he's been fantastic for us, but there does come a point. Another massive red flag along the way, though, in the Kyogo timeline that you didn't mention there was at the start of the season, he changed his agent. And within a matter of days, he had this weird link to Manchester City, where we were like, what the hell?
Sorry, yeah, you're
so,
right.
It does take a genius to work out how quick this has all turned around. Obviously, they have been talking to Rennes for a while. Johnny's, I'd say 99% correct on that one, that this has been agreed. They've just told him, look, just see it out until we've qualified, and then we'll let you go. But yeah, I think his agent has, since he's changed that, he's been looking for a move. We speculated in the summer as well. Does Kyogo want the competition? When Adamida was signed for 9 million quid, 9.5 million quid, we also questioned that at the time. Is there maybe, because again, within a matter of weeks of Adamida signing, or maybe just before he'd signed, and it was going to happen. Again, the agency change, I say within a matter of days, Kyogo's off to Man City, which I think in the last few months he's been putting his client's name out there. The player himself, again, going by what's been reported tonight, he does want to be in amongst the Japan squad. He keeps getting overlooked for the Japan national team, which again, we're always scratching our heads going, Jesus Christ, Japan must have some amazing centre forwards. If, Maeda's the only one out of a sort of trio that gets picked all the time, Hitati and Kyogo less so. He's 30 years old, World Cups, the next one, 2026. Then after that, it's like he's not got many chances left to play at something like that. So again, if it's going to get him that move, then he goes with a blessing. And it's football. We've seen Moussa Dembele leave, seen Odsonne Edouard, seen Henrik Larsson leave, Chris Sutton. You can name all sorts of big strikers and going back God knows how long, and we've got over it. And I don't think this will be commissioned either without something put in place, because
100%, mate.
That's
what's annoying me.
Yeah.
That's what's annoying me, Phil. I mean, I can see that the Footballer's Life has put about a zillion posts about it in the chat tonight, and I hope you're well, Footballer's Life, and cheers for coming on the bus. I think there's a bit of bedwetting though going on when you genuinely think this transfer's been commissioned because the replacement's not in yet. Do you honestly think that means Celtic won't be getting a replacement?
I think that deal's done.
I've kept my eyes on the board, and rest assured, even the biggest skeptic of the board can accept, Phil, there's a replacement coming this month. Let's not, muddy the waters here. And if it's someone the manager fancies more, but you're only in hypotheticals right now because you don't even know who it is.
Well, Russell,
So-
last Friday we were on Friday Feeling, and I brought up the little incident, a little subtle thing in the press conference last Friday when he was asked about Johnny Kenny, and he looked like he didn't even know who Johnny Kenny was. And I didn't even think it at the time, but you were very good in the way you put it back to me, saying he's probably put it to the board, I want another striker. If he sits there and goes, Johnny Kenny, brilliant, great future ahead of him and stuff, the board might go, oh, there's your man, there's your guy that's going to slot in behind Ida as the second choice striker. So he's probably, not going to play up Johnny Kenny too much. So because probably there is work in the background to get another striker in. And regardless of, maybe Kyogo's form hasn't been as lethal as it has been when it was with Ange and to Brendan. Brendan will still realise how valuable a bloody player he is to the club and wouldn't have allowed it to surely to leave now without something else lined up for them. So I'm pretty confident that something is in the pipeline here and will happen within the next week.
I reckon,
Johnny,
as far as a replacement, I reckon if the deal's not done, then they must be pretty certain it's getting done. It must be, because I just don't believe that they would let Kyogo go and then risk being left with Ida and Kenny for the knockout phase. I mean, for the league would probably be all right because of the lead we have in the league, but they're not going to let that happen for the knockout phase. There's somebody ready to open the door and walk through, I reckon.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know what I'm like with that board, and there's just no way. Don't be. I mean, your more comes in, and this is maybe what's exciting me because I'm looking at it from a different lens. Your more, I love just saying that's the handle. The 10 million though would still be there in the summer. I'm going to flip that right back and go. But Rodgers would say, "Well, that means Kyogo will still be there as my striker for the latter stage of the Champions League. What are you not getting? I think I can improve on him." That's and I know it's not one that folk want to hear, but you don't even know who the replacement is. There's no point saying Kyogo's better than X. You don't know who it is. My hunch is, you're right. If Rodgers was totally Kyogo, obsessed and thinks he has got to be there in that Celtic side for it to succeed, and he needs him to the end of the season, I don't think they sell right now. They don't need to. I think what you can take from it as a positive is Rodgers is going, I'm ready to roll the dice. I think actually do it January because I'd rather have this alternative. I'm ready to go. I've had 18 months of Kyogo and I've not managed to get the magic numbers that he was doing under Postecoglou off him. If we can get that money in, I'm quite happy to flip it. I always remember the term of flipping two players. Martin O'Neill says it a lot about when he first came in. He had Mark Viduka. Now, Mark Viduka was a problem off the field. I can't imagine Kyogo much was. Sounds though the agent potentially was as well. There's so much more detail in these stories. It might not be Kyogo who's causing the bother, but his agent might be a pain in the arse and agitating for a move. And it's, we're going to need to make a call here. But that side, he literally just flipped the Mark Viduka 6 million for the Chris Sutton 6 million. Now, if we were doing the bus back then, I don't think that live chat would be very happy at the thought of signing a striker who'd scored 3 goals for Chelsea the season before and flopped. I think that, but Martin O'Neill, I'll roll the dice on that one. I know Big Viduka's on a long-term contract, and O'Neill tends to actually be good with moody players. So the reality is he probably could have thought, well, I'll get him motivated, all right, don't worry about that. But instead, you put your trust in him, and he went for, I think, someone we thought we were downgrading and bringing in Sutton for Viduka. Such was the level Viduka was at and the terrible reputation Sutton had for that year at Chelsea, and it worked. And I just wonder right now, if we look at this from a positive angle, Celtic and their manager have decided this move makes sense. Now, that tells me they are happy to take an opportunity this January window and what they see as someone who might fit or might be a better piece for the puzzle than what they currently have. It's aggressive, but surely we've seen us be languid in these transfer windows. We've sit about in our hands. I think it's a big move, Phil. What's your take on that?
Well, again, if you just need to look at somebody like Alex Ferguson over the years, he had no problem, freshening it up. And regardless of how big a star you were, at Manchester United, he would still move them on. You know, guys like Yap, Stam, Beckham. He'd always break his team up after a few years, rebuild, and have success. It is an aggressive move, and it is again. I love Kyogo. I think he's fantastic. I'm not sitting here saying, you know, get him out. He's been terrible. End of the day, I trust that the club have a plan. I do. I know there's some people in the chat tonight who are just adamant that they don't have a plan. But I think in this case, I don't think Brendan Rodgers, after coming back and some of the stuff that he said so far and the assurances to get him back after how he left the first time, it would be just going right back to 2019 again to allow our main striker to go and not have a plan. So I'm very confident in saying that there's something happening here, because it's just, again, no smoke without fire, isn't there? It's that old saying. There's got to be something going on. It does not make any sense at all to let him go. Because Ida right now, I love Adam Ida as well. I want him to obviously be a success. It's becoming hard to come on here week after week and defend him at times, because he has looked very off it. Delighted for him last night, even though it was an own goal, but regardless,
a huge contribution still.
Huge contribution, huge. But do trust him to be the guy, you know, so it does make sense. Something
regarding Ida, how good was it to see the passion in him after that, you know, because he's looked a bit lethargic, you know, and obviously we're getting substituted. He's not going to be dancing about and fist pumping and whatnot. But, you know, I think Liam put in our chat today, Liam's Greenlaw, the punk dunk warlord, he's said in the past he was a bit concerned about how laid back he is. Well, he was anything but laid back last night, and it was good to see him pumped up and fired up like that. And maybe that's just going to be the catalyst that's going to boost him up a little bit and send him up onto a good end of the season, and doing from January to May this year what he done from January to May last year. But we definitely do need to have somebody else coming in, and I'm pretty sure there is somebody lined up.
That's the thing. I mean, there's no point arguing about hypotheticals. All we can argue about what's in front of us. And Celtic are gambling right now on selling Kyogo. If you want to go down the hypothetical route and your hypothesis is they won't replace him and they won't bring in another striker, it's your gift to think that. I mean, I just don't see it. I think it's an aggressive move. Maybe we didn't see coming. But when you break it down, you look at the numbers I was quoting you earlier, and you look at his age, and you look at doubling your money. Is it not? Maybe there's an argument to say maybe Brendan didn't fancy Kyogo for the latter stages of the Champions League. How many goals did he get in it this year?
Good
question.
When you look at it like that, it all makes sense.
Did he score against Bratislava?
He did. He bundled one in on the line. It was in amongst a bit of a dry patch for him for a few games, and he got one against Bratislava. And off the top of my head, I think Bratislava's the only one that's coming to my mind right now. There must be another one. There has to be.
Is there?
Surely.
Oh, didn't score against Dortmund. Didn't score against Atlanta.
No.
Didn't score against Bruges.
That was my either that night.
Didn't score against Dinamo Zagreb.
No. So there's only there's one against Bratislava. Yep, there's that one.
Thank you. So
there you go.
There is that side of it I don't think we're looking at. Rodgers is looking at this going, I think this is maybe the time to roll the dice, get the maximum value for Kyogo we can, and flip that money into someone I think can make an impact in the Champions League, because we're not going to miss 1 goal from 7. It's the reality.
Yeah.
But I know the movement. By the way, just once Kyogo does go, I think it's fair to say amazing memories from him over the 4 years.
Oh, brilliant.
100%. 100%.
Amazing. I think he was a player that, you know, really did bring an uplift to what was Celtic at the time when Postecoglou came in, that was so in the gutter, on their knees. It was like a morgue talking about Celtic. It was, you know, it was terrible. And
I think what you've also
he brought joy. He played with a smile on his face, but then brought the quality. And he was a catalyst, and he inspired those around him. And I think he was a really refreshing symbol of that era. And I'll go back to it, Johnny. I'll like coming right now. I think we got Kyogo's best years. And it's rare we say that about a player.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. But what you've also got to remember about Kyogo, and I absolutely love the guy, and he's been absolutely amazing for us. But the morning when we woke up on the Saturday morning, I remember I was up early. I was going to work. I was still driving minibuses at that time, and it came up on my phone that Celtic are about to sign some Japanese guy. There was not one of us excited about it. There was not one of us that we thought, oh, we know about this guy. There was obviously I'm a bit detached down here in Lincoln, but I just don't think there was any sense of excitement whatsoever when we'd signed the man from Japan there and smell the gloves just put on there. But he very quickly turned us around, and whoever we bring in next to replace him, Phil, I remember talking to you after we'd done a show. And I don't think me or you are surprised that he's leaving, but because we predicted amongst ourselves after a show that Hatate would go in January and Kyogo would go in the summer. We might just have got it the wrong way around. We didn't expect Kyogo to go in January. So maybe it's going to be Hatate goes at the summer, because we sort of predicted that offline everything. So not surprised that he's leaving, just surprised at the time. And to be honest, if I'm being honest, I'm personally surprised that he's decided to swap a potential of another treble, a definite of another title, and phase 2 of Champions League to go and join a relegation battle in France.
Agents and the Japanese coach don't care about either of those things.
Yeah, I know, but the player, I mean, like, say, it's,
That's the way I see it.
Yeah, you're probably right.
It's advice. It's
for the sake of another few months. If I'd been Kyogo, I'd say, I'll tell you what, mate, for the sake of a few more months, I'll wait until the summer and see what you can get me then. I want to try and win some more medals, because when I get home back to Japan and retire, it'd be nice to look at the bank account and see how many zeros or whatever it is they use in yen in Japan. But I also would like to open up the cabinet every now and again and look at the multitude of medals that I won. He's finished winning things now. He's not going to win anything in France.
Well, I mean, I hear that, but it's a short career as well. And the opportunity for a World Cup. And then if there's a new agent in your ear, and he's commercially driven, and he's looking at decimal places on wage packets as his sort of, bread and butter, then he's going to go, what? You're not missing out. You'll miss out if you don't go. You're about to turn 30. I know you still play Pokemon and that, but you're about to turn 30, mate. Like, it's time. Anyway, what about this, Phil? Because we'll just combine the two chats, in fact. Why not? So, your mom's back in. I'm being biased in the night. Or she. I don't actually know if it's a girl or boy. He says, I've got a sneaky feeling that Rodgers might offer Edouard a chance back up here. He only has 6 months left. Wow. I mean, as Thin Lizzy said, the boys are back in town. I mean, could you ever imagine a window, right? And this would be the mad thing, where 3 former Celts come back to Celtic, right?
Yeah.
And the oldest one is 27.
Yeah.
So there'd be no, has he still got it in terms of it's a veteran coming back, to hopefully rekindle yesteryear. It'd be 27-year-old Tierney, 27-year-old Edouard, and 25, 26-year-old Jota. That would be bizarre. But I hadn't even thought of the Edouard one.
No.
Yeah.
But
there's somebody from America looking at Edward. I've seen something online about. Has Ronnie Dyler just gone to the States?
He's an Atlanta United manager. Yeah, he is.
I've seen something. I don't know if it was Ronnie Dyler, but I've seen something online that some American team was apparently interested in Edouard, because he's on loan at Leicester, isn't he? Not getting a game. Is that
on loan at Leicester? Yeah, he is. But yeah, he joined for the season, but Palace, he's still a Palace player, but he's on loan at Leicester. They don't recall him or anything. If they had something lined up, usually they'll recall them. A bit like what we're hearing around Alex Valier, although that hasn't happened yet. But yeah, Edouard, that would be an interesting one. I mean, I've been one of the ones on this channel who's been very pro Odsonne Edouard whenever people have called him all sorts of stuff under the sun because of that COVID season. I've always been one of the ones that's been like, but, always having a counter argument to it where the guy still scored, 25, 26 goals that season. And it's like, it ain't really his fault that Diego Laxalt and Shane Duffy and whatnot couldn't defend, and we kept chopping and changing the goalkeeper. He did everything in his power. I think he was down with 2 bouts of COVID that season as well that kept him out for a good few weeks. But for a reason, a lot of fans have just made it up in their mind that, Don't want him back. Lazy. That's the word that always gets thrown around. Fantastic striker for me. I thought he was absolutely awesome, especially when he was up front alongside Griff. Thought they were absolutely excellent together, the two of them. Just a shame we never get him and Dembele together. Edouard, if he was to come back, it wouldn't surprise me if Brendan was making moves. I mean, the Kieran Tierney stuff, obviously this has came up this month, but remember a good few months ago, before this January window, Kieran Tierney and Brendan Rodgers were spotted at some sort of event together, having a wee chat. Remember that whole thing? Well, back at the end of last season, in May, we had our big Player of the Year awards at the Hydro. We upgraded to the Hydro last season for the Player of the Year awards. And Odsonne Edouard was in attendance. And out of all the people who were dishing out awards that night, Odsonne Edouard was the only one that was still a contracted footballer playing for another club. Everyone else that presented an award that night was an ex-player, ex-manager, who were all long retired. Odsonne Edouard wasn't. And I saw on Twitter that night.
He wasn't picked to do that for his sparkling repartee, was he? He's not. He's not what you would call the most. He keeps it short and sweet. Charismatic individual.
But he had a good seat because he was sitting at the top of the table.
Yeah. Well, apparently the seat he was sitting on his way to the Hydro that night was he arrived on the first team coach with the players that night as well. You don't think, and remember last summer, Odsonne Edouard's future was up in the air at Crystal Palace. A few months before that, he'd said that he'd been told he was able to leave the club, or was told to find a new club by, who's their manager now? He was the Frankfurt manager, wasn't he, when Rangers lost him? But anyway, he told him he'd find a new club. And then a week later, he pops up at the Celtic Player of the Year Awards while still a contracted footballer. And it's like, surely Brendan must be like, come have a wee seat with me, Odsonne. Come sit next to me in front of the bus. It's like, I wonder.
What is going on? Like, Rodgers back, and then it becomes Tierney back, Jota back, Edouard back.
I'll tell you this, Russell. See, a few minutes ago,
Fryer at centre half and all.
Well, just a few minutes ago, Russell, to my left-hand side of my telly on the STV News, they were talking Celtic transfer stuff, and the graphic that came up on the screen was obviously Kyogo. Jota was on the graphic, and so was Tierney. So they're talking about it on the STV News, but the Jota rumours as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely weight. There's weight to it. There's the old WhatsApp messages that go around, Johnny. We know that some are pish, some aren't. You don't know what to take of them. But sometimes when there's a high volume of them, even if they're, you don't know what the source is. If there's a high volume of them, you go, maybe something. And obviously, I think it was 5-6 days ago, the puns with the George Michael sort of titles. There was a careless whisper that. You just got to have faith in Celtic to get a winger and all this stuff. But that's now been sort of rubber stamped as concrete interest with obviously the mainstream media publishing it last night in conjunction with posting that Kyogo's for the off. Jota coming back to me is one that would be massive. Jota, I've said on the channel a million times, I thought, natural ability-wise was the best player that Ange Postecoglou had. He wasn't one of the wingers who has all that star quality who frustrated me ever. He wasn't that type for me. I thought he was brilliant for us. I think he's gallus enough to do it at the top level. I'm amazed how his career's not been able to work. I think Saudi, there were circumstances where they oversigned the amount of foreign players. It's only 150 grand a week he's on, so he only costs 25 million, so he's the one who can miss out. And I think from then it's stumbled again. How he doesn't get in that Rennes team? They must be, I don't know. They must be better than I think of them as, but they're apparently down the bottom end of the league on table. And sometimes you get in life, Johnny, you get a good fit, and Jota at Celtic was a good fit, and I think. With the experience that he took when he was at Celtic, he immersed himself in the whole experience, but he produced on the park. That's what I'm bothered about the most. If there's an opportunity to get Jota back, which it looks like there is, go all out and get him and show that when you're recouping Bernabeu money, Champions League prize money, and Kyogo money, you're going to be putting that straight back into the team and actually enhancing it. Because Jota enhances Celtic's squad instantly.
Oh, definitely. And I've been on record on here before saying I'm not generally a fan of second time arounds. But that's generally because it's the second time around guys are generally people as you've sort of alluded to earlier on there, Boycie, that are in their 30s and sort of just coming back to wind down their career. But the ones we're talking about at the moment aren't. But if we stay with Jota, their manager is already talking as if Jota's not there. He's, as far as he's obviously he still is. He's not signed for anybody, us or anybody else. But their manager is already talking about as if he's gone and we're on the lookout for another winger. Now, much like yourself, I would wonder. Dembele's currently struggling in Steven Gerrard's team, isn't he? But I lost the thread of what I was going to say there. Yeah, but I don't know who they're looking at to come in. Jota is an amazing talent, and then we have to. If he comes back, then we start on right. Where's he going? Is he going on the right to replace Kuhn?
But look at it this way, Johnny.
Or is Maeda going to move to the middle and Jota play on the left?
Does it need to be that binary though that we can only look at a first 11? Because what you've got right now is you've had Nicholas Kuhn injured, Maeda suspended coming up, and the drop off with the option you've got then coming in is so far off the standard those two have that rotation's the key here. It's not about one dropping out
I appreciate that, but who's going to want to be which ones? What I'm asking is where's he going to go? Is he going to go rotate on the right with Kuhn, or is it going to be a mixture of all three? In fact,
I think it'd be a mixture of all three, and I think what he offers you as well is, and it's not. He comes in to challenge for your jersey, and if you're not at it, then he's going to take your jersey. And Rodgers, I think, I like to hope, will be ruthless enough to make those tough calls, and that's what we need, because right now, those two wingers, for amazing as they've been this season, the drop off when they can't play is it's a joke.
It's not even measurable.
It's not.
Ridiculous.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I think as well, you can't get enough good players. He'd be a statement signing if he was to come back. Then
one question for you regarding Jota. A lot of people keep saying, "Oh, well, he can't come back because of the tax issue." Well, I'm no expert, but I can't understand what would the tax issue be. The only tax he would surely have to pay would be the tax he's earned when he's come back to play at Celtic. Because what he's earned outside the country, he hasn't earned the money in Saudi or in France, in the UK. So why would the UK government have any claim on that tax? I just can't quite figure this one out at all.
So what's got confused, I think, I'm no expert, unless it's about Rangers, then I become an expert. When it's jokes, but when it becomes talking about the tax thing, I think the confusion stems from the likes of Lenny. Couldn't remember when he was at
Cyprus,
Nicosia, and then he couldn't apply for the vacant. It was probably the Hibs job. It's always vacant. He couldn't. He was like, he can't take it over because of the tax purposes. But is that not because he's a UK resident, or like he's a UK citizen?
Even Ray's just said that. Apparently, the tax issue is a myth. Would only affect players who are UK citizens.
Yeah. And I'm like, Jota's Portuguese. Like what he's done out with the UK, he doesn't owe anything to Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, apart from when he's working there. So I think that's a myth that's been taken from the examples of Lenny for Nicosia was the first time I'd heard of it. And I think there was another example, wasn't there? There was another example.
Something out there ringing a bell in my head,
Hey, I'll tell you who it was. It was Jordan Henderson, and that's why he went to Ajax.
Ah, right, okay.
Remember the Liverpool captain? He only lasted 5 months in Saudi. He couldn't go back to Premier League. So it's not the case, and thankfully it's not. But all eyes on that. That's, I think it's a perfect tonic. And again, I look at the Jota one with the KT sort of same glasses on, albeit actually it's less risk because of he's not got the same fitness concerns, if you like, about KT. But with Jota, you made 25 million on him, right? And profit wise, you made, I don't know, let's say 16 million pounds, something like that profit, right? All in. If you need to go out and then spend another 10 million to get him back, you're still in the green on this player, and now we'll be about to embark on a fourth season of his quality on the park, which contributes to bringing in extra revenues from prize money and European stuff, Phil. Like, This is business, good business at that.
I've seen a few tweets doing the rounds, like sort of they're doing it as a parody, but it is true, you know, to sell those players for the prices that we did and what potentially they're coming back in for. Peter Loyal can't believe his luck. The amount of memes and videos that I've seen doing the rounds, it's how it's all just fallen that way. But I'm so in favour of, you know, getting Jota back again. You want to keep those options strong. It's so true about Palmer and Yang. They're just not it. You know, Palmer had a wee promising start when the first season, but it's been the drop off. It's been massive with him. Like, he just looks bereft of confidence every time he's on. And Yang, again, I think Brendan's just been using them just because that was what was available. I don't know if Brendan truly believes there's something there.
Johnny Kenny vibes, the Johnny Kenny press conference vibes.
Well, perhaps, yeah.
This is all I've got.
Yeah,
I've got to play the guy who does a goal contribution every 300 minutes. That's all you've left me. You know, does it emphasise the point? Perhaps.
But I'm all in favour of having, you know, 3 top options there. And I think, again,
come on,
refresh my mind 2 years ago, Jota, he could do both things. He was he rotated, didn't he? Yeah, so again, it gives you cover where if one's injured, suspended, whatever, and yeah, we're going to play a lot of games between now and the end of the season. You know, we're still trying to chase the domestic treble and also try to do something in Europe. So plenty of games still to play. There's going to be opportunities for them to play plenty of game time if it is all happening. So again, a lot of fans are getting worried about, but this might upset this player and whatnot. That'll be the manager's problem. And see, at the end of the day, it's up to the players themselves to make sure they keep that jersey. Earlier on when you're talking about they'll keep each other sharp. James Forrest and Patrick Roberts, look at that example. That's one of the best examples in recent years. 2 players for the same position, and they were at the top of their game in that first season under Brendan. You know, the James Forrest that was playing under Ronnie, I mean, most people had him on the scrap heap. They were just like, oh, he's done, you know, he can go, no problem at all. But then that first season with Brendan, it was like James Forrest became such a valuable player for us because Patrick Roberts was so good. And no matter what one you played, you got a hell of an end product from both of them. Massive contributions. So it was like, this is what we're doing here. Jota comes in. When you're Maeda or you're Kuhn and you know that Yang and Palmer are the ones that are breathing down your neck, essentially, for your jersey, it's not really going to keep you on your toes thinking, you know, they're going to come and take, But Jota being there, and then if Jota gets into the first team and he's got one of they 2 breathing down his neck, so to say, it's like, it'll keep him sharp as well.
Breeds competition, doesn't it?
It does.
No, it does. I'm just, before we, I'm going to sign off now because we've been way over the hour. But football is life. You know, a regular comment, but it's been going the whole show. So I've said, and we're all for the debate, right? So football is life, though. You've got to back it up, mate. He says you're sitting there saying that they're going to get a replacement in, which is complete bullshit. Now, how you know that, I'll never know. So I'm like, I wonder what his reasoning behind it is. This is how he no replacement will come in because Celtic can't be bothered. I mean, in the words of Chris Sutton to Derek Johnson, it's hardly forming an argument, Derek. I mean, if that's the logic, I mean, then it's true hurts. But it's not true what you're saying. It's a theory that you think might be the case. And to be honest with you, the evidence is stacked against you because we've progressed. We've made a bomb already in January now. We've only got 1 striker, but you think that won't be replaced. And it's because they can't be bothered. If that's the logic, then I'm really sorry. That's not one I can get on board with. I think it's an aggressive move, and I know the reasons why people aren't in favour of it. But let's let that play out and let's see what the football guys think, because I'm guessing, as we've all alluded to, there is a plan, and we'll find out what that plan is. Johnny, can't thank you enough for tonight, mate. I thought you were just jacking it early, mate, or just a wee casual walk off stage.
No, I had to go and sort some stuff out, mate. Yeah. No, just before we finish, I think we should make a special mention to Shaban Ahern, her name on TalkSport?
TalkSport, yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't seen her video clip today talking to Adrian, the Rangers supporter, give yourself a little treat and watch it, because she was spot on. She was brilliant.
It was low-hanging fruit, though, let's be honest. It wasn't difficult. Right, okay. I will see you all later. Cheers, Phil. Cheers. Nice one, Johnny.
Cheers.